Good morning. All set? Thank you, sir. I think it was quite insightful. And we owe a lot to the government to make our life easier. So the mantra is ease of living is what it is. And so moving a track a little bit. So I know ease of living is to be done by the governments. A lot of technology leaders here wonder about transformation within the company that they work for. And as leaders, we basically are responsible for that, right? One problem that I have is I need a little bit of feedback so that make sure that you are understanding what I'm kind of talking about. How many of you have read this book? Anybody has read this book? Okay, very good. You have read this book? Fantastic. So you please keep quiet for a moment. But what we will talk about is why digital transformations fail. And there's a book written, and I'm pretty sure as we move along, there will be more books which will be written. When did the digital transformation era start? Any guess, roughly? When did the hype start, sorry? Sorry? A decade back, maybe the early part of 2010 to 2013, 15 is when the transformation journey started. But what happened after that is people started taking a lot into the organizations. And we are seeing casualties in the last 3-4 years. Anybody heard about a case study of Hertz rent-a-car in the US? Yeah? So you may Google that. They went through a large transformation program, and then obviously subsequently something happened and they sued the partner and so on and so forth. And there are a lot more casualties which are on the way. And what I will try to do is, from my experience, kind of give you a gist of what are the pitfalls that you need to watch out if you were to do a digital transformation in your organization, right? So all we have to do is, digital transformation is not easy. That's the first realization that everybody needs to go. It is not about implementing AI, it is not about implementing IoT, it is not about implementing robotic process automation, it is much beyond that. Everybody agrees with that? Yeah? And so, what digital transformation means is something that we'll see here.
Across industries and around the globe. Each new technology has the potential to impact the way we do business. But when organizations recognize connections between new technologies and bring them into harmony, they create something new and greater, the symphonic enterprise. Data, that basic building block of every enterprise, becomes the most valuable business asset an organization has. As companies work to strike the right balance between control and accessibility of that data, they can embrace the API imperative, enabling them to share and consume those assets both within and beyond the enterprise. More broadly, organizations are fundamentally re-engineering how they harness technology and deliver solutions. From the top down, their mission and operating model, and the bottom up, their tools and infrastructure. This transformation is blurring boundaries between the traditional IT department and the heart of the business, reimagining functions like finance and supply chain. As emerging technologies scale up from prototypes to pilots to broader adoption, the enterprise will continue to harness new innovations, like industrializing next-generation engagement with customers, employees, and partners through augmented and virtual reality, or standardizing technology and business processes in the growing blockchain ecosystem, and building a new workplace and talent model that serves both humans and machines. With exponential technologies such as artificial general intelligence and quantum encryption on the horizon, how an organization prepares and institutionalizes innovation will make all the difference. By orchestrating the collision and confluence of technology forces today, IT leaders can create the symphonic enterprise of tomorrow.
Yeah, so I think if this is a video which is available on YouTube, it covers a lot of things. It talks about data, it talks about a lot of new technologies like blockchain, AI, and so on and so forth. And it means a huge gamut of change in an organization. And it is difficult, right? So one of the biggest difficulty that organizations face is about data. Yeah? People say data is the new oil. And there is a Gartner survey which was done, or sorry, a Harvard Business Review survey. Anybody knows how much percentage of data typically an organization uses for decision making? Any guess? What would be the percentage of data that is being used for decision making in an organization? Less than 5%. The statistical number is 4%. Yeah? And the reason is we are not able to provide that data in the form that it is consumable by the business leaders or the business teams for decision making. And so it's a huge journey for an organization to make that 96% of the data available in the form which they want. That is the biggest kind of a problem that we see. So what are the problems that we see in terms of why digital transformations are not working? Fuzzy definitions. I am pretty sure if you go and speak to 10 different people in the organization and across the organizations, everybody will have his or her version of what digital transformation means. Let me give you a very simple example. What is the difference between digitization and digitalization? Anybody? What is the difference between digitization and digitalization? And a lot of people kind of show me a blank face. And so is corporations. So what is the definition? Digitization means you are making a manual process digitized. That is, and that does not mean digital transformation at all. But most of the organizations are spending tons of effort just doing digitization. And they're saying we are undergoing a large digital transformation program. It doesn't work. You will not get benefits out of it. Digitalization means you take a process, you take a business outcome, try to use digital technology and apply to that so that you are able to create wonders out of it. That is transforming a business model into a digital format. And that is the difference that a lot of people are kind of getting into, and that is what I meant by fuzzy definitions. Second is understanding the economics of digital. How many of you have thought through when you lay out, so obviously if you have engaged any strategy firm, they would come and say that there's a huge amount of potential that you can uncover with digital, right? Everybody will say that. But there are no easy frameworks, and I come from a retail industry, so we are Arvind Fashions. We predominantly deal with a lot of branded fashion apparel. We produce about 4 crore garment pieces every year. Till date, we are struggling to find out what is the unit economics on a digital platform and on a physical platform, and how do they compare. And these are tough decisions, because the ecosystem that is there is so complex that you are not able to kind of understand the entire end-to-end economics of that digital platform which is there, or the ecosystem which is there. Yeah? And so it is very important that from an industry that you belong to, you need to go into the details of it, understand what is the unit economics of those digital transformations that you're doing, and what is the business impact that you are going to derive out of it. Does it make sense? Yeah? Anybody on the back bench there? Yeah? Third, and this is the biggest problem that you see in organizations. Who should own the digital transformation? There is a new term which has come in. What is that last term? He's the most confused guy in the organization. Chief Digital Officer. Yeah. So, I have my own view. Different organizations have different structures and things like that. There is no need of a digital officer. There are enough CXOs in the companies who have enough knowledge to do this if they understand what needs to be done. If they don't understand what needs to be done, they think that by bringing a CDO, he will do miracles. It does not work. He is a guy who is sitting outside, doesn't know what business means. Either you make somebody who is part of the business and then ask him to do this transformation, still makes sense. But bringing somebody from outside saying that, okay, come on, now we have a digital plan, we'll have somebody to do it. In my view, it's a classical recipe for disaster. Does it make sense? How many organizations that you have seen are more and more having digital officers? Yeah? You say at least 50-60% of the companies are now actually instating digital officers. And you see over 2 years' time, they kind of run around all the departments trying to figure out what they are trying to do. Yeah? So that is another thing. And so this is some statistics in terms of who drives digital. There is a CEO view, and the CEO views that he or she is driving the digital agenda. CIO feels they are driving the digital agenda. And the CF also feels that they are driving the digital agenda. This is all kind of aggregate statistics across organizations. And so you see that there is a confused state of affairs in organizations. Nobody knows who is going to be the captain of the ship of this digital transformation which is going to happen. And that is why CEO will have a view, CIO will have a view, CFO will have a view, and then you bring in a fourth party called CDO, he or she will have their own view. Classic kind of recipe for disaster. And that is why from now till 2000, maybe 3-4 years, we'll see a lot of casualties. I want to give a little pause, allow you to read this. The first thing that anybody will kind of come and tell an organization is that if you want to move into a digital era and be digitally transformed, you have to be agile. Yeah? And this is what people interpret agile as. Doesn't work. That understanding of what agile means, if there is a planning process which is there, which is for 9 months, you are not agile. It's not about not planning. It is about planning things which are manageable so that whenever the change happens, you are able to react to that fast without having any disruption. That is what agile means, in simple terms. But this is what people think. No, we don't need any plans. We have to just start doing things and we become digitally ready for the organization and the company. And the last big thing which is there is, I put in a lot of technology and then I will be digitally transformed. And this is the biggest kind of a myth that I would say is there in a lot of organizations. And if you go and see organizations where the digital is led by non-technology leaders, I would not say that technology leaders do a far better job or anything of that sort, but wherever the mantle is more on the non-technology leaders, they feel that just bringing technology will solve the problem. Doesn't work. You have to look at the business model, you have to look at the business processes, you have to make sure that all these things are tied together, and then whatever is appropriate from a technology perspective, you apply to that. That is where the difference lies. What people typically do is, now there is a fashion, when I go and speak to a lot of people, what are you guys doing on digital? He said, we are doing RPA. Okay. What does RPA mean by digital? Earlier 10 people used to do the job, now 10 bots will do the job. It's the same thing. There's no transformation at all. So the understanding of what technology brings in, what technology does not bring in, is something which is very, very important. And so if I were to basically if I were to kind of pause here a little bit and ask you, out of the 5 things that I talked about in terms of pitfalls, which one is the most critical? This one. And we do a lot of these kind of technology senate seminars, technology conclaves all over the country just to push technology into the organization. And as leaders, I would urge and request, don't get overwhelmed by technology. Even as technology leaders, we should not get overwhelmed by introducing new technology. I was speaking to, just 2 days back, I was speaking to a very large, kind of a so-called a very old group. And they have recently hired a so-called transformation leader, they call it. And they are running a program wherein they will introduce somewhere around 18 or 19 new technologies in the next 2 years. And he was trying to get some feedback from me saying that, what do you think about this? How do you face it? And I said, boss, you are writing your kind of a resume in such a way that it will lead to disaster. And that is the message that a lot of people are not understanding, and they go too far, and then stories like Hertz and so on and so forth are kind of coming on the fore. So be cautious, make sure that technology is put in where it is relevant, and make sure that it is all working in tandem with the business processes, business models, and so on and so forth. And so digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation, all these three have to be understood in detail. Make sure that your executives, your CXOs understand this, and they are able to kind of look at it from these perspectives and are able to kind of achieve the benefits out of the digital transformation. And so if I were to do this, this is a McKinsey video in which they kind of talk about what are the problems that a lot of organizations are going to face in their digital transformation journey.
Your digital strategy is a winning one? Then you're among the few. Sure, disruption isn't anything new, but the speed and magnitude of digital disruption across sectors and functions is unprecedented. Consider this. Only 8% of companies we recently surveyed think their business model will survive digitalization. If the threat is so clear, why are most digital strategies failing? After 3 years of research and direct experience working with more than 2,000 companies around the world, we identified some common flaws. Most digital strategies don't reflect how digital is changing the economic fundamentals, industry dynamics, or what it means to compete. More than anything else, companies simply don't appreciate the scale of disruption bearing down on them. So, to awaken a sense of urgency and point toward how to do better, here are 5 pitfalls incumbents should beware of. 1. Watch out for fuzzy definitions. Digital should be seen through 2 well-defined lenses. Economically, it radically changes the profitability curves and scale effects. Operationally, continuing advancements in data analytics and connectivity create new insights that enable not only smarter automation, but entirely new business models that narrow or siloed definitions of digital will miss. 2. Make sure you understand the new economics of digital. Digital transfers disproportionate economic value to customers. This shrinks the economic pie for incumbents across most sectors. At the same time, digital produces huge rewards for first movers. The winner takes it all. Simply defending market share is no longer a winning strategy. 3. Don't overlook ecosystems. Digital platforms like Amazon and Tencent are breaking down the barriers between industries. This changes the fundamental economics. Value pools center more on platforms and less on traditional value chains. 4. Look beyond the usual suspects. Most companies worry about the threats posed by digital natives, whose moves get most of the attention. But incumbents playing digitally, including those from other sectors, will drive just as much disruption as digital natives. Why? Because they move at scale. 5. Don't miss the duality of digital. Incumbents can't choose between transforming the core or innovating new business models. They need to do both. Digitalization is not going away. In fact, the game is only going to accelerate. If they're going to survive, companies must change where and how they're playing. Incumbents must move fast.
Right? So the game has just begun. Let's make sure that we play the game, we are fair at the game, and we come out successful of this game. Thank you.